There's a lot of things I like about running a YouTube channel. I like recording, I like talking about the movies, I like watching the movies to talk about, I like interacting with, followers and posting on social media, talking about stuff with my friends. I love movies and I love recording and doing the channel. But my favorite thing, hands down, is when I go through that entire process. I do the recording, the audio sounds great, the video looks good, the lighting is right on, the jacket feels just perfect, the microphone is in the right place. And then I open it in Premiere and I extract the audio on Audition, and then I quickly realize that, hey, it just cut off 2/3 of the way through without actually telling me, and the audio and video are completely useless. So then I have to start the process all over again, turn the lights back off, put the microphone back on, turn the camera back on, set everything up. That's my favorite part of doing this, is when everything falls apart and what's the bet, especially after I do a really good review and I feel like everything went well. So let's talk about the movie Barbarian. I'm going to tell you what I think of it again. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on the red subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. So sarcasm aside, I'm going to keep this review relatively short because it's going to be spoiler free. I don't want to ruin the experience of watching Barbarian for you. This is a really, really good horror movie. It's a really, really good movie. And I dig it. And director Cregger, who did his first movie by making this, really does a phenomenal job. This is confident, crisp, solid, good horror filmmaking. It's my favorite horror movie of the year so far. It's run circles around something like Halloween Ends, which I reviewed a couple weeks ago and absolutely hated. And I like the performances. This is a movie about a woman in Detroit who rents an Airbnb for the night as she's doing a job interview the next day. And then she finds out quickly that the Airbnb is basically double booked. Somebody else is staying in this house that she's supposed to be in. And then things get weird. It's a little awkward between them. She decides to crash at the house. And then things become very sinister very quickly. And it's a cool premise that just really works well. I like how Cregger uses the city of Detroit. It's very much a character in this story, and I dig that. And what's good about this movie is it never really goes off the rails. It has some pretty significant shifts in how the perspective of the story is told, and it doesn't go nuts. It's not as obvious as something. It's not as it's not as meta as something like Cabin in the Woods. It's not really all that meta at all. This is a very simplistic horror story that has some cool twists and turns to it. But it's also not something like the thriller Gone Girl, where halfway through the movie it just becomes a completely different movie altogether from what you were led to believe. And then it's not something like Halloween Ends, which, spoiler alert, sucks because that movie isn't even about Michael Myers. And that's why I hated it. This movie is it's just rock solid. The script is great. You can tell he put a lot of time into honing it, as it is his directorial debut. And the performances, Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, Justin Long, they're the three main characters. They're all really, really solid here and do everything they're asked to do well. And the movie makes some really awesome stylistic choices in the way it's filmed. Some of the perspective shifts and changes are really, really great. And they never actually derail the film. And this movie is just confident, lean, solid horror. It's about 15 minutes longer than your average horror flick. I feel like an hour and a half is kind of the sweet spot for horror movies. This is about an hour and 45, and it's right on the money. It never feels rushed. It never feels like it drags. It's kind of the perfect horror movie. It tackles modern day issues and really fits in today's world, and I dig that about it. And Detroit is very much a character in the movie. The city of Detroit, as it is now, it's a fascinating city to me because as soon as you leave downtown Detroit, it's just this massive beat down suburb. That's all that Detroit is outside of the downtown corridor. And if you look on Google Maps, you can tell that right out front. And the city itself plays a part in this movie, and I don't want to spoil it, but I I dig that aspect of it, and I'm fascinated by the city itself because it's like this awesome. It's this kind of like sad and depressing and yet awesome at the same time portrayal of a city in disrepair that was once a flourishing metropolis. And it still is that to this day. You know, when I wonder if Detroit ever regains its former glory, when you look back on movies like this, it's like, man, what a time period Detroit went through, you know, a long period of time. And anyway, like I love that it plays a part in the story. Long story short, so I dig Barbarian. It's my favorite horror movie of the year so far. It's definitely like one of my top 5 favorite movies of the year, and the performances are all rock solid. The story is great, and it kind of plays with your expectations too. Some of these actors are known for portraying certain types of characters, and they play against type here, which I really dig. And yeah, I love this movie. Really, really liked it. A lot of my friends told me I would like it, and they were right. So hit me up in the comments, let me know what you think. And thanks so much for checking out the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, please consider subscribing. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's really all the only place I'm active on social media, at Real Hometown Zero. And hit me up in the comments, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.